So we do, right, have all three characters and their responsibilities. And what we have in this particular piece by Sartre is a look at the world that is very logical. It's very normal. There are still lots of questions that we don't have answers for, but they're not questions that are textual. We aren't looking at the text or the actions of the people in the play and saying, we don't understand exactly why that happened. We don't understand why somebody did a certain thing. We don't understand what the syntax and the meaning of a certain action is. We can understand clearly what almost every one of these characters is doing. And so, in that respect, right, the play itself is not absurd. The situation in the play we would sort of define as absurd because we look at this and say, hell shouldn't be this way, right? The people in the play don't think it's this way, and Sartre clearly explains to us that, that is part of the point, right? That we don't believe that this is the way hell should be in any definition of it, right? This is not what we expect, which is absurd, right? The reasons that people got there, maybe a little bit more existential, right? Not necessarily that Garcin treated his wife badly, but that he was a coward and refused to take responsibility for his own life, right? And for the life of those people, around him. Like, he would have continued to be a coward, right, until the day he died. And now that he is dead, right, nothing he can do about it, right? Ines, right, is a lesbian, which we might think, right, in that particular time period would have been looked at as, oh, it's a pretty serious crime, right? And certainly I don't think we look at it the same way today, but the way that she treated her significant other also, right, not great. That is the crime. The crime is not the relationship. The crime is what she did during the relationship, right? That this would have been, by any definition, a person who was treating their partner badly. And of course, for Estelle, right, number one, right, causing the suicide of, right, a loved one by, basically treating him as well badly, is very important, right? That she refuses to take responsibility for the things that she has done on the earth, and so for all of them, right? We see clear reasoning that we might be able to sort of move into reasons to go to hell 101. But we get clear responses. So how we feel about the play pretty much can still depend on, in many cases, the way that the play is written, the way that we experience the text, the way that we experience the routine storyline. We are about to head into, right, a period of time in France, in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, when we do have what we call the theater of the absurd. There's a PDF up there now. You can look at it, right? I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint up there to sort of talk through it as well. But what we see is the difference between a book like The Plague, a play like No Exit, and a play like Waiting for Godot or Endgame, is that Camus and Sartre, when they write, they really want to sort of explain what they're talking about. Right? We see clear pictures, we see clear images, we see clear definitions. Camus and Sartre want to tell you about why you are responsible, why the world is absurd. They want to present these things to you sort of in details that are going to be pretty easy to understand. What eventually happens, what we're looking at now, is that in all the plays we're about to see, there is not necessarily an explaining, but simply a showing of, this is how it feels to be in an absurd situation, right? And the idea of how you feel and how you are experiencing the text and the play itself, if we do end up watching them, right, is much more important, right? If we talk about existence precedes essence, this is kind of these plays have to exist, and you have to experience them before you can judge them, right? Now, we might say that about any work. We might say that about any movie, right? If you go to see Oppenheimer, you're going to experience the movie Oppenheimer. You're going to learn about the creation of the atomic bomb. If you don't already know a lot about it, you're going to learn a lot more about it. You're going to watch them do these tests, and you're going to have a reaction to it as an audience member because it's the story that's going on, right? And your feelings about war and about atomic weaponry are going to probably be reflected in the way that you react to it, right, in many cases. Or your reaction may be specifically to the way that Cillian Murphy, acts his role as Oppenheimer, right? You may react to the acting itself. But in absurdist plays, the idea behind them is certainly how are people acting, but how are we reacting to the feeling of sort of being in the absurd, of being in a situation that we are not expecting. We don't expect to be confronted with certain language or certain ideas. We don't expect to be confronted by people living in trash cans. We don't expect to be confronted by the emotional rawness of somebody in those trash cans speaking with, a son, about their experiences, right? We're going to see a lot in the next couple of weeks that is going to be, one, confusing, two, maybe slightly problematic because of the way that we react to it, right? We may not expect certain reactions, but we need to react, right? We need to experience the plays, let them happen, and then, right, have our reactions to them, right? Eslin's Theater of the Absurd explains exactly why that is, and it's an important thing to sort of read that introduction and then to look at the section on Beckett. Those two sections are going to be key for us to sort of prepare ourselves for what's happening next week when we start to dive into Endgame. So we'll be right back, right, with another short sort of piece about sort of what we're looking at with Eslin.